to the introductory episode of Cryptid Café Podcast. We are here in Michelle's little artist house with coffee. I have an espresso. What kind of coffee do you have?
I have an espresso with some milk and sugar, so I think it's technically a latte.
Nice. Well, I am Sarah.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm excited to talk about cryptids with you today. Let's give the audience a rundown of how we met.
Yes. We met in middle school. I don't remember a particular class. I just know we hanged out in the same circles.
I also don't remember a particular class, but I do remember that we had French class together. Should we talk about that French class?
We're not having tea, but if we want to spill some tea, we can. That was a disaster.
Long story short, the teacher died. R.I.P. She was a really good teacher.
She was genuinely very nice.
I didn't expect to talk about my favorite teacher on our very first episode. She was my favorite teacher. Her name was Mrs. Grogan. She taught us French. And then she caught lung cancer and died halfway through the semester. And after that, we got like a whole bunch of different substitute teachers.
Yeah, there was like a different series of substitute teachers
and they would all, I remember they would all be like, I'm going to be your permanent teacher.
Yeah.
And then they would be gone 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
it was. Have a new one.
We learned nothing after she left. Like, there was no French being had. It was.
I remember they just passed every single person in that class, and then they gave us credit for 2 years of language because it was so bad. It was actually so bad.
It was really bad, and one of the substitute teachers, I don't know if you know that, but my family got fired.
Really?
Yeah, she fully made fun of me in front of the class.
Okay, I remember that.
Yeah, so
I don't remember being there.
Yeah, it was. We didn't have the exact same class, but what she did is she was just really weird, just really short and impatient, and as an anxious ADHD person who didn't know how to function, I fidget and just move and shake my legs and do things all the time, and she would like tell me to stop, which, is in her right if I'm disrupting the class. But she took it to
But it's like, what, one jiggly leg is going to disrupt the entire class?
Exactly.
Like, fuck off, lady.
It's like, what is the deal here, lady? Like, there's other things going on. But she literally pulled out one of the desks that's like connected to the chair. She pulled it forward in front of the class, sat in it, and imitated me.
Oh.
Literally in front of the class.
That's ugly.
It was nasty.
That's ugly behavior.
And it was all also very dramatic too. It wasn't like, oh, here's my leg shaking. She was like, like spazzing out in the chair. And I wasn't even offended. I was just literally immediately flabbergasted and was like, this is wrong.
It's like, hey, you're an adult woman. Why are you acting like this towards a child,
And everyone in the class was like, no? And I was like, can I be excused from the class? Like, I rose my hand and was like, can I leave?
You're like, if you hate me so much, I'm actually just gonna leave.
Yeah, I was like, can I leave? I want to go to the office. And she was like, no. And I was like,
I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, I stood up and I had like 4 friends in that class. I had like Bailey and some other people, and they were like, just go. They're like just as messed up. So I got up, and while I was leaving, she was like writing me a referral. I don't even know. She was writing me some type of suspension.
She was on some sort of power trip.
Exactly. And she was like, there's a security guard, and he was like, what's up? And I was like, I'm going to the office. And she was like, she needs to go to the office. She's in trouble. And I was like, that's where I'm going. So
Is that the first time that you've ever been in trouble?
Oh, definitely not. I was sent to the principal's office earlier in middle school and in elementary school for a variety of shenanigans.
Okay, you're gonna have to tell me about that later.
Yes, but anyway, French teacher. But yeah, we got to know each other in middle school, and it was kind of.
Yeah, getting back on track. We have known each other for more than a decade now. We're now in our mid to late 20s.
Late 20s. I just turned 28.
I'm slightly older. I'm about to turn 29 in February, and I'm not scared. I'm not scared of it at all.
That sounds I'm not scared.
I'm not scared of turning 30.
Me?
I don't care. It's a privilege to be aging.
That is true.
What is your favorite cryptid?
My favorite cryptid, I gotta go with the basic one. I love the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay.
I went to Scotland and the Loch Ness when I was like 11.
Okay.
And it was really cool and just seeing the loch itself, big old cold lake. And we were also there in the dead of winter. Absolutely frigid.
I can't believe you've been to Scotland. That's amazing.
It was very fun. My dad grew up in Glasgow.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I'm learning a whole bunch of lore about you this episode that I did not know.
Well, he was a Navy brat. So he traveled all over. He was born in Alaska, had some years in Guam, but his tween and teen years were in Scotland.
How come he doesn't have an accent?
He was only there for a couple of years, and then after that, he spent, I think, 3 years in Guam.
Okay.
And then he's just been in America since. So,
Nice.
He's been on the mainland for at least 30 years. But he can switch on a Scottish accent pretty good.
Really?
Though. Yeah, he can do pretty good.
Scottish accents, I think, are the hardest European language to imitate.
It's hard. And we do have some weird traditions we do in our house that's Scottish. Anyway, but
that's cool.
We went there. We went to visit my dad's hometown of his, and
a hometown.
And just the superstition about it was kind of my first real experience looking for a cryptid.
Okay.
And knowing that there's there's a dude here, and we kept joking because there was these type of bird that had a really long neck, and they weren't swans, but they were really thin, but they had a really long neck and a weird head, and it was mostly just a silhouette. So if you zoomed in on your camera and took a picture, it looked like the Loch Ness Monster.
Of a swan.
Yeah. And it was just a silhouette, super winter, everything's gray, so it looked like a gritty found footage.
That's actually very cool. Last time I went to Ireland, I saw a whole bunch of swans that were just on the rivers there, and it's the first time I ever saw a wild swan. Maybe it's the first time I ever saw a swan, period, but they're incredibly elegant and beautiful creatures, and I really like them.
They are. They're big, but they are essentially geese. they are assholes. We went to a few castles that had them, and
they will fuck you up.
Yeah, they will fuck you up, for sure. But that is my favorite, is the Loch Ness Monster.
Nice.
What is your favorite?
My favorite cryptid is probably Mothman, just because of the amount of internet presence that he has now. I think there's a whole bunch of very hilarious jokes and aspects of Mothman's lore now.
Aspects.
No, literally. There's a lot of aspects. I'm personally not attracted to the Mothman, but I do find it extremely entertaining that other people are attracted to the Mothman.
They depict him with quite a bodacious booty. And other weird, very humanoid features.
Yeah, I know. I also just think he's kind of spooky. We'll probably get into Mothman in a couple of episodes, but he's just got kind of a weird Batman kind of a presence too. A lot of people, when they see him, they think that he just has a cape, that it's just a dude in a cape, a really tall dude in a cape. But it's a moth. It's a giant moth.
That's kind of
man.
That's kind of terrifying. You're like, oh hey bro, oh
no, literally.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
In a fun way? Question mark.
I also find him a little scary because he's known for following cars, flying above cars, and if you're driving down a really dark road and it's something's above you, oh, that's so spooky.
That is spooky.
Okay. What kind of vibe do you want to cultivate for the pod?
Essentially, it's a dumb thing. This vibe.
This vibe.
Sitting, having a cup of coffee and chatting, and I want to make it feel like the viewer can come in and sit down at our coffee table and just listen to us yap.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we were talking about naming the pod, you came up with the idea of a cafe where cryptids are there, and you actually came up with a really cute logo, which is a Nessie inside of a coffee cup, which I think is really cute.
Yes. Yeah, I want to play more with that design. But yeah, the Cryptid Café, similar to a cat cafe, but imagine not just cats roaming around, but
But Mothman is making you an espresso.
Yeah, Mothman's making you an espresso, Bigfoot's your waiter, Cactus Cat is running around doing whatever, there's just all the weird little guys.
Cactus Cat, I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it was, I was looking up for local cryptids in this area, and of course we're around a lot of desert areas like Borrego Springs and things, and there's Cactus Cat.
Really, I would like to hear about it.
It's
if you can recall.
Yeah, it doesn't have a ton of lore. Essentially, it came up when people were moving in this area, mostly for the gold rush.
Okay.
And they would suspect that they see a cat, but it wasn't quite right. So, like, the hair looked like it was bristly, like, has points and things like that. And people thought it would, like, attack and do things, like, leave spikes in you and, like, mess up your tents and stuff like that.
Really? I love a gold rush story. I think they're really funny.
But it's been mostly debunked because they believe it was just a bobcat or a puma/mountain lion that they just misidentified because they were new to the area. So they just made up lore because they've never seen.
They were like, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. So is there a cactus cat? Is there a cat that looks like a little cactus that walks around and does pranks? Or was it just people who'd never seen a cat before?
Nice. Okay. Would you like to get into the cryptids?
Sure.
Or is there anything else you would like to say?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna start, if that's okay.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna talk about Yucca Man, and I have more research depending on how much time we have. But I would like to talk about both. My other research is on Lake Elsinore, the Lake Elsinore Elsie, which is the Nessie version of Lake Elsinore.
I love that.
But I also included research for Tahoe Tessie, which is essentially the same lore, but for Lake Tahoe, you know?
Interesting.
It's really interesting. I think the closest lake to us right now is Lake Elsinore. We're in Southern California in San Diego County. And we both did local cryptids for this episode.
Yeah, for the first episode, we decided to do local cryptids.
We're paying homage to our local area.
There we go.
Okay, so
I'm ready.
The Yucca Man. The first recorded sighting of Yucca Man was in the 1930s in Borrego Springs. That seems to be a very spooky place. Seems like there's a lot of cryptids there, including Cactus Cat. A camper found himself surrounded by large two-legged beasts with glowing red eyes.
Upsetting.
They were very poetic back then. Imagine calling something a beast instead of calling it, what the hell is that, you know? The most well-known sighting of Yucca Man was in 1971 by a Marine who heard strange growling sounds and heavy breathing surrounding him while he was on watch. He was, like, watching. Or whatever Marines do. And then he found himself confronted by an 8-foot-tall creature. 8 feet. Big creature. The Marine draws his gun and is like, he ends up being knocked unconscious. And then when he wakes up, he finds that his rifle that he had drawn to point at the creature was bent in half, which guns are clearly made of metal, so it sounds really...
Did it do, like telekinesis and, like, bent it, or was it...
Well, he was knocked unconscious, so I'm thinking that the creature bopped him upside the head and then bonked.
Yeah, like, bent it over his knee. He's like, I've seen what these can do.
This makes it clear that Yucca Man is very big and very strong. And not scared of you or your guns.
I can bend your guns.
This Marine later said that this creature was not only very tall, but that had glowing red eyes and smelled very bad. There have been sightings since the 30s, but the only physical evidence to date is a blurry photo and a cast of a footprint that is in a local museum. I think it's like a little desert museum. It's like somewhere. I think it's in Borrego Springs, maybe.
That would make sense.
Some of the sightings... Okay, so a lot of people have seen Yucca Man. There's actually been a couple of different sightings. Like, I wrote down a few of the most notable ones here. I discounted some of them that were, like, kind of, like, out of the way or sounded like they weren't Yucca Man. There have been some sightings, like, in Mexico, but I sort of, like, didn't do those ones because they were really different than the Yucca Man that appears to be the most common in the lore.
The 8 feet tall with the red eyes.
Yeah, like there was some people who said that they saw like little green creatures in the desert along with a Yucca Man and all that, and I was like,
they got little guys. They got little friends.
They got little guys. I could talk about that one. That one was some two teenagers in Chihuahua, Mexico, went into a cave where they found animal remains, and then they found they assumed that a Sasquatch type Yucca Man type creature was there. But then they also said that they saw little green, like almost elf type men, but like kind of little bouldery, like gnomes. But they said that they were green and metallic.
Whoa.
And then they said that I can't remember exactly what they said, but yeah. So I didn't include that one because it didn't really fit with the Yucca Man.
Seem to be the same creature.
Yeah, it doesn't seem the same. That seems like a different cryptid that I can research later. Should the readers or listeners want to hear about it?
Yes, when they read our podcast. Sorry.
So some of the sightings of Yucca Man include a small boy who was sent out on his family's ranch to tell his father that dinner was ready. He did not return, and he was found a little while later sobbing by the corral or by a building on the ranch and stating that a large hairy man would not let him pass. So he was not able to go find his father, which is crazy.
I think I would also go cry.
Yeah, like, also, I lost my train of thought. Okay. Another one was in 1979, and an old couple saw Yucca Man, which Yucca Man appears to them as it's giving Sasquatch but blonde, not like darker in color like how you hear up in like Northern California, like when people talk about Sasquatch. But Yucca Man is apparently very pale in color, which makes sense because his environment is kind of a desert environment, and he would be able to blend in with the sand better if his like sandy locks, you know. So in 1979, an old couple both saw Yucca Man cross the road in front of them while they were driving. And then another one, eyewitnesses from Edwards Air Force Base also claimed to see large figures with glowing blue eyes that seemed to move through the night very stealthily and very fast. Okay, so these stories are obviously very similar to Bigfoot and Sasquatch as types of cryptid encounters, except for this one is blonde and in the deserts. He has varying eye color, and some have suggested that they get around via tunnels in the desert, which is why they aren't seen very often. While others speculate that because they are often seen near military bases, the Marine in the first one and then Edwards Air Force Base, that they might be the result of a military experiment. Others suggest that it might just be a tall, long-haired blonde man that just did too many psychedelics and wanders the desert. There's some indigenous lore that talks about what might be the Yucca Man. Local indigenous people, namely the Kumeyaay, the Kahila, and Luiseno people, they do have some stories that might reference the Yucca Man that they call the Taquis. Funnily enough, Taquis is also the name of a site at the head of the Rancho Santa Margarita where we go hiking sometimes. Oh. Yeah. The Taquis is sometimes referred to as the original shaman and is known as an evil creature that makes its home on Mount San Jacinto. He started out as a good shaman, but began to use his power to hurt people, and was banished to live on the mountain, where he is known to manifest as green fireballs or deep rumblings within the San Jacinto Canyon, as well as a large man that lurks about trying to steal people's souls. And this man can emit blue sparks, which sounds like static electricity to me, if we're being honest.
It could be, but still strange.
Yeah. So what do you think? Smash or pass on the Yucca Man?
So, described as 8 feet tall, glowing eyes.
Red or blue?
Red or blue.
Maybe it's like an individual basis. Like how people have different colors.
Potentially. There's also the theory it could just be a stone, just regular surfer guy hanging out in the desert. Yeah. This completely blonde, just walking around nude. But the 8 feet tall and the weird, you'd think that there was like a bunch of stone surfer guys out there that we would hear stories about people being found.
No, literally.
You're like, we found this one.
People disappearing.
And the military connection is really interesting too. But smash or pass? I would probably say pass.
I would also probably say pass, and that is because I prefer frail, weak men.
Too strong. Too strong, too tall.
Too strong, too tall. I'm not interested in somebody that can bend a rifle in half. Like, hello.
That is scary.
Okay. Will you talk about your cryptid, or would you like me to go into like Elsinore?
I could talk about my cryptid.
Okay. I would like to hear it.
I don't have nearly as fancy of notes, but I'll give it a go.
I'm just interested in hearing what you have to say.
Yes. So my cryptid is called the Riverside Monster. Also has been called as Wetzel's Monster. And it has a little bit of a theme with yours with the glowing eyes.
Okay.
So the Riverside Monster is said to be a reptilian humanoid monster standing approximately at 6 feet tall. The Riverside Monster has extremely long arms, a round scarecrow-like head, a reptilian-like scales on his body, and the legs seem to grow on the outside, like on either side of his torso rather than underneath the torso.
Okay.
Got like a crab walky gait going on.
Giving spider a little bit?
Just only got 2 legs, but they're just out more than they are just underneath.
Oh,
That's what they were described. And apparently fluorescent green eyes as well.
Okay.
So the main encounter of this cryptid and why it's called a Wetzel cryptid is because it was first seen on November in 1958 by Charles Wetzel. He encountered the monster while he was driving on North Main Street by the Santa Ana River. And this is in Riverside County, so this is like all within driving distance of where we are now, in like the northern part of San Diego. And when it was a stormy, dark and stormy night.
Okay. Isn't it always a dark and stormy night?
Right. Dark and stormy night. It was raining. He was on his way home in his automobile. We're in the 50s. And he was going to cross the bridge, but the river was a bit overflowing, so he like slowed down. He said right before he crossed the bridge, the static happened on his radio. Like the music cut out, all of a sudden, static.
Hate that.
Yeah, and almost simultaneously, a large creature stepped in front of his car, and he described it as the 6-foot-tall, gray, weird, scaly Riverside Monster. And he says that it attacked his car, it clawed at his windshield, and there was even claw marks later reported on the police report of the vehicle, like by the window, like not on like the fender and the bumpers and things, but like up. He reportedly had a gun and went to go reach for it, thought again, and just ran it over. Honestly valid.
Yeah.
6-foot-tall creature comes out your car.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to shoot through your windshield?
Yeah, what's the plan?
And then you don't have a windshield to protect you from clawing.
Yeah.
It's better to, if you ever encounter a cryptid, I think it is best to just run it the fuck over.
Yeah, just either you get away or you run it over. Like, yeah, I don't blame his reaction one bit. The day after he went and reported this incident to the police, and the police report does say that there were scratches, animal-like, on the vehicle, and that there was evidence of something that did indeed rub underneath his car, like he did actually run something over.
Oh.
So even if he was seeing something that wasn't there, whatever mental, there was still evidence of something happening to his car that was really strange.
Okay.
So they went and they had police dogs look around the next day. There was no remains of any animals that they could find, and there was nothing of significance in the area. What was also weird is that the day after this report, which was the first report of a monster like this in the area, another driver reported that they saw something large and gray that was running at his car in the same area, right by the river.
This thing hates cars.
It hates it. But those were the 2 reports I could find of it. There wasn't any other things. There was rumors that there are creatures in the river itself, in the Santa Ana River. They've seen like a reptilian-like creature on the bottom of the river. But apparently there was like a local university that would just do weird things, like put a costume in there. So that I'm not entirely sure of. But there was a strange 21-inch footprint found on the riverbed, and that's way too large.
How long is 21 inches? Like,
yeah, closer to that. It's like just under 2 feet.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, so a huge footprint was found in the area in the 70s.
Okay.
But that was the last they could have heard of something strange in that area. There has been a connection to that story and the apparent existence of the reptilian people that live underneath the tunnels in LA, which is absolutely fascinating. I need to look into. I just love that there's a theory that there's just a whole civilization of lizard people living underneath LA.
I love that. Yeah. you should do that one when you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like, maybe that's why he was never seen again. He was like, went back to a tunnel, went back somewhere else. But it was just those two instances, and that is.
So does it have arms, or does it just have two limbs coming out of its body?
It has two long arms. It's humanoid. It has, legs and arms. It's just that the legs, except for like, your hips go down where your legs are. Just imagine they go horizontally out of your legs. There's in California is Weird or something like that. There's a book and there's an artist rendition of it, and it's horrific. I hate it so much. It has like the legs of like if you know like Waluigi from like how they're just like awkwardly bent out. But imagine it being really tall, so the legs even look larger because they're like kind of like out and then down.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that is the Riverside monster.
What do you think the chances are that was just a university student in a costume and that they got run over by a car?
Oh my god. They would have had to survive.
That seems like something a frat boy would do for reals.
True. But that just seems like a really difficult costume to pull off, though, too.
I guess so.
Because, like, with the legs
you would have
being
to hide your
weird,
legs somehow.
Yeah, and also the glowing eyes. I don't know if I covered that, but they're supposed to be fluorescent glowing red eyes. No. Green. Yeah. Green eyes. And, we're in the 50s. It's not like they had access to, like, LEDs as well. And, things like that. It's always a possibility. But.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. There's scratch marks on the car, too. Like, it must have had.
Yeah.
Gnarl. And it's also, like, could have been a coyote or something like that. But it's like, the windshield's quite up.
A coyote? Okay.
Well, who knows?
Okay, skeptic.
But even then, the scratch marks and things like that are pretty.
A coyote with 21-inch feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a Bigfoot coyote.
Like a really crazy, like, monster coyote with insane legs.
Yeah.
So smash or pass the Riverside Monster.
If you look at the artist rendition of it, that's a hard pass. That thing is terrifying.
Okay.
And the description of a round scarecrow-like head with, like, out ears or anything, just eyes in the mouth.
Yeah.
Not for me.
It's reminding me of there's this like video game where it has these little creatures that are kind of like they look like a triangle, but they have big just like black holes. They look like when you put a sheet on your dog. Yeah. And you are like, this is a ghost, But that's kind of the image that I'm getting in my head right now. But more triangular. Me personally, I would probably pass.
Hesitant
pass because I do love green eyes. But the driving and having something in front of your car is actually one of my worst fears. I find it really scary to drive down dark roads at night, roads that don't have any streetlights, because I am scared that something is gonna be in front of my car if I turn the road, if I turn or something. Really scary. Okay, let me talk about Tahoe Tessie / Elsinore Elsie.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tahoe Tessie is often connected to pre-colonial stories of water babies from the Washoe people who live in the area. And these water babies are supposed to be powerful spirits that inhabit the lake, especially around Cave Rock. They have the power to harm those that speak ill of them, so I will only be saying good things.
Do not talk shit about the water babies.
Do not talk shit about them.
I do like the name water babies.
It's very cute.
It sounds very cute.
That is a name that you would give something that you're scared to talk shit about.
The water babies.
It's just a baby. Yeah. Don't worry about him. He's just a baby. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking everyone forward to 1865. From pre-colonial times to 1865. In 1865, a socialite from San Francisco named I.C. Coggin reported seeing a 600-foot serpent in the woods near Lake Tahoe, and it had a 14-foot wide head, and it was talked about like a triangular head. When he was describing it, it was kind of giving like Eastern dragon.
Yeah, I was like,
that's kind of the vibe.
600 feet. That's so big.
Yeah,
that's so big, and a triangular like head. Yeah, I do. Am I getting?
This is fascinating though, because it was not seen in the lake; it was seen in the woods near the lake, which gives it an amphibious kind of a vibe.
Right, not just a water dweller, but also land.
Mm-hmm. So later sightings occurred mostly in the 1980s. So 1865, one guy saw it and was like, and then nobody talked about it for at least 100 years, 120 years.
Just minded his own business.
They were like, so multiple reports came in the 1980s of a large creature living in the lake. Most of them described a large dark figure swimming beneath the surface, usually creating a noticeable V-shaped wake, like when something's moving really fast through the water. One person described it as being as large as a rowboat, quotation marks, with an open mouth. This is disgusting and scary to me because I'm really scared of sea creatures that have open mouths, like basking sharks, which are real. They're like filter feeders, and they'll just
and their mouths are like enough you can stand in them.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Absolutely terrifying. I'm not interested in ever seeing a basking shark.
I'm not interested in seeing a whale either. Those things are too big.
Those are also really scary. Did you hear about the guy recently that survived being swallowed by a whale?
That is wild.
I think it was a humpback whale, and he was kayaking or something, and the whale like
just breached.
He didn't breach. He was trying to eat. Like his mouth was open, and he was trying to like probably just get a swarm of fish, you know, or a.
And there just happened to be a dude in there.
And well, it knocked him off of his kayak, and at first he didn't even realize that he had been swallowed by a whale. Actually, he like just thought he was underwater for a second and was like, this is weird. And by the time he like probably registered that something was wrong, the whale had spit him out, which there have been multiple instances of whales swallowing people. They'll usually just spit people out once they're like, this is not fish.
Yeah, too big.
Too big. Bleh.
Gross.
But the main danger with being swallowed by a whale is that they're so large that they can really easily like break your bones if they close their mouth on you, you know? So I've actually looked this up after hearing that story. The best way to survive getting swallowed by a whale is to make yourself into a ball.
Fetal position,
and then wait for them to spit you out.
Well, thank you for a new fear.
Sorry. Okay. Let me know if you don't like the tangents either. We can cut it out.
I think they're fine.
I think the listeners are probably interested in learning how to survive a whale swallowing.
Yeah.
Okay, where was I? One man named Mike Conway reported seeing a humped creature while shooting a commercial on Lake Tahoe. Several children on board shouted, "It's Tessie!" right before the boat started to rock really violently, unexpectedly. Conway said that the footage was destroyed from that commercial.
Convenient.
No, extremely convenient.
That's rude.
And I looked it up. There's no explanation of how it got destroyed or why it got destroyed. It's giving government conspiracy.
Government conspiracy?
The government was like, give me the tape.
Or it genuinely got wet, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it could have been sensitive to, you know, the lake. If it fell in, the boat rocked so much.
Like dirty lake water.
Yeah.
More recently, the most recent sighting has been in 2005. A fisherman and two visitors saw a V-shaped wave and a dark shape with humps 100 yards from Tahoe Park Beach. So they were standing on the beach and they were like, what is that? And something dark passed by. These stories are all very similar to ones told about Lake Elsinore's own creature, affectionately named Elsie. I think that's a cute name.
That is cute. Very cute, like name for like an animal, like a cat.
So about Elsie, Lake Elsinore has dried up several times and nothing has ever been found, but people think that Elsie just waited it out in a cave nearby, or just migrated to the San Jacinto River, which is nearby, and I guess feeds into Lake Tahoe. We're out of Lake Tahoe. But this makes me think that if there's a lake, people are going to think that there is a sea creature / Nessie in it. Both of these stories have been heavily marketed to tourists, which might explain the similarity of the stories told of the famous Nessie. This might explain their similarity to the stories told of the famous Nessie in Scotland's Loch Ness. Several theories have been used to try and explain the sightings, including that it might be a large sturgeon, which is a scary looking fish that is found in really deep lakes.
Yeah, they're nasty. Lake
Tahoe is actually the second deepest lake in the United States and the largest alpine lake in North America, which is an alpine lake is a lake that's high in altitude.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was
It's like a mountain lake.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that big, and I didn't know what an alpine lake was.
There's actually a whole bunch of lore surrounding Lake Tahoe. Like, a lot of people say that the mob used to dispose of bodies there, so there's hella ghost stories surrounding Lake Tahoe.
Fun.
It was actually interesting, though, because while I was doing research, I came across an article that debunked all of these, like, the mob and all that. Like, there was also stories of just people basically just dumping bodies into Lake Tahoe, like, over the course of from the 1800s to, like, mobs 1940s. But the person who wrote this article that was debunking all of those stories was, like, a tourist commission. So it was like...
It was just like, look, everything's fine.
Yeah, it was like, I'm sure you have no ulterior motives for wanting people to not think that there's a whole bunch of dead bodies in the bottom of Lake Tahoe.
Like, my first thought, like, obviously it sucks that people are getting murdered, and that's never a good thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm just like, that gotta be nasty. That's a lot of, like, just dead meat in the lake. That's nasty.
Yeah. There have been people who have gone... This is... true. There are people who have gone diving, and because it's so deep, sometimes they just never resurface.
Yeah.
That can happen no matter where you go diving, though. So
yeah.
It doesn't mean that they got eaten by a Nessie.
But there was a corpse down there. That's a free lunch.
And they talked about that. They said that while Lake Tahoe is extremely cold, it would have preserved the bodies, but that it would have not done anything to prevent animal predation. So if there are any animals down there, they're definitely being eaten by, like, sturgeons or Nessies.
Yeah, sturgeons, fishies, Nessies. Yes.
Scientists studying Lake Tahoe have said that the amount of fish in there are enough to sustain a large predator. And people have noted that a lot of these creatures that people talk about, Nessie and Elsie and Tessie, people have noted that a lot of these creatures look a lot like the prehistoric plesiosaur. These creatures lived from the late Jurassic to the late Cretaceous period and were long-necked, long-tailed, flippered aquatic reptiles. Funnily enough, their closest living relative now is turtles. So maybe they did not go extinct. Maybe one is living in the lakes. Mm-hmm. Other theories include abandoned goldfish that grew to large sizes and mud pushed up by geothermal vents that give the appearance of humps. So it's just blowing, like, hot air of, like, mud. I also came across one interesting thing while I was researching sea monsters. In the Catholic canon, like sainthood canon, Saint Columbus, one of the miracles that he performed, you have to perform a miracle to become a saint. One of the miracles that he performed was sending Loch Ness's Nessie back to hell, which is so mean.
What do you mean back to hell? Was it from hell?
Yes. So it's canon in the Catholic Church. They think that Nessie is a demon.
Also, I love canon in religion
in this
is
context.
very funny to me. Well,
There's
no, just so bizarre.
There's so many interesting things. We should do a podcast episode about like biblical monsters. Or
yeah, I didn't
cryptids.
know the Loch Ness Monster was even mentioned in like religious situation.
I know, it's really fascinating, but people have seen Nessie like way past when St. Columbus lived, I think. So
He didn't do a good job.
he probably did not succeed, and she's probably not a demon. She's clearly a water baby. I don't know what you're talking about.
Do not speak ill of the water baby.
Do not speak ill of her. She's so cute. But yeah, this particular type of cryptid is really common in our modern lexicon, in the cultural zeitgeist. There's a place that I've been to that's called Nessie Burgers that was recently not recently, but it was voted best burgers.
Hell yeah.
By like the Trucker Commission or something.
They do look good. I don't eat beef, but they're
very good. They're huge too. It's like one burger can definitely feed 2 people.
Nice.
Do you have any thoughts on Tahoe, Tessie, and Elson or Elsie?
I love sea monsters. Like, it makes sense. Like, big bodies of water are so hard to fully explore. So it's like the cryptid to me that makes the most logical sense, because it's like we just don't know enough, and I don't like it makes sense that there would be a large predator there if it looks like a prehistoric animal. Like, a lot of them do look like I forget the big finned dinosaur,
Plesiosaur.
yeah, they do look like that, and or some type of other reptile, but just I find it fascinating. Fascinating. I find it fascinating.
I
find it fascinating. But yeah, and having any body of water and people think that there's a Nessie adjacent is fascinating. You know, I wonder if there are that many creatures, or that's just the human brain trying to explain something they don't understand.
It's just human nature.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, there's something spooky in there. Like,
well, I myself do find like large bodies of water slightly disconcerting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy to imagine that something with a big mouth is gonna come up and get me, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I get it.
It makes me feel very small.
Yes.
In a big lake or something.
And just a little drop of water in a big bucket.
So, smash or pass? That was aggressive.
Aggressive smash or pass.
You have to tell the people.
I do have to tell the people. I gotta say, even though the water scares me, I'm gonna say it's a smash.
Just because you love her so much.
I just love it. And it's fascinating. And also, that's a big old monster.
Big old monster. Well, I would also have to say smash. Just because I don't want to talk shit. You know, I've been warned. I listen when people warn me not to talk shit, so yes, I definitely would. And I would practice holding my breath.
Oh god. It might be the last thing I do, but smash.
I think that's the case with all of our cryptids that we talked about today. Smashing might be the last thing you ever do.
But hey, if you gotta choose a way to go out.
Okay. Thoughts?
Thoughts on all of the local cryptids?
That's all the research that I have.
Yeah, that's all the research I have as well. For our local Southern California cryptid peak.
Yes. Cryptids.
Cryptids. So, I've enjoyed recording our first episode of the Cryptid Café.
Me too. Thank you for coming to the Cryptid Cafe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Please throw your cups in the trash on the way out.
Yes, and definitely make sure to tip Bigfoot. He gets very cranky if he doesn't get his tips.
He'll bend you right in half.
Yeah, he'll bend you in half like a Yucca man. To a gun, but like you as a person.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
And we will probably catch you next week.
Yeah. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.